Welcome to our webinar today on MSW social work. My name's Leah and I work in the recruitment and marketing team in the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences. Thank you so much for joining us at this webinar today. I also am joined by my colleague Sally Paul, who's the course leader for the programme. Sally's going to host the webinar today and give you some information about this programme. And I'm also joined by my colleague Vivian McGuinness. She's one of our admissions and selection colleagues, and she can answer any questions you might have today about the admissions process. So the format of the webinar today, we're going to do 45 minutes approximately on some slides. Sally's going to share some slides and just go over a bit about the course and give you a general overview. And then there'll be about 15 minutes at the end where you can ask any questions you might have, and we'll just have a live Q&A. If you would like to ask a question, you can type it in the Q&A box, which is just along the bottom. If you scan your mouse along the bottom, it's a wee box with a question mark in it. If you keep all the questions in there, you can type a question as we're going through, as you think of anything, and then we can address them at the end, and we'll send you any links or any other information that you might need through that box as well. Or if you would like to talk, we're happy to have you. We can unmute your mic. So we can't see you just now, we can't hear you. Hopefully you can hear us. But if you're comfortable with it, we're happy for you to come on the microphone and talk to us as well. If you want to do that, you can just press the raise hand button and we can organize that there. So I'll just hand over to you then, Sally.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Leah, and hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be here to tell you a bit more about the Masters in Social Work at Strathclyde. I'm going to share my slides, and Leah, if there's any problems, just let me know, but I think we should be good. Okay. And we'll start from here. Leah, is that okay? Do you see the slideshow?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes, that looks perfect.
Great. You can't see my notes? No?
No notes.
Okay, thank you. Just making sure. As Leah said, I am the programme lead for the Masters in Social Work at Strathclyde. It's a unique qualification that we provide here. The postgraduate diploma is the aspect of the qualification that allows you to work as a social worker in Scotland, and the Masters is the academic qualification. And as a student here, you do have the option to leave with just the postgraduate diploma if you're planning to work in Scotland. That is all you need to work as a social worker. But the majority of our students go on and do the full masters, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. And that enables you to transfer your qualification out with the Scottish context. And many people do going on to work internationally. And if you didn't know where we are, we're we're right in the heart of Glasgow. That's our campus there, and a really short walk to all that Glasgow has to offer. It's a really great, diverse city. I moved up myself to Glasgow to do my social work qualification, and I never left, which is perhaps testament to the city itself and what it has to offer in terms of a career in social work. And over the next 30, 40 minutes, I'm going to talk to you a bit about, why you might want to consider a career in social work. And I would imagine that if you're thinking about a master's qualification, you've already started to think about that and you already bring lots of experience. For many of you, this might just feel like the next step. But I'll just go over some of the key aspects to think about and in terms of what social work is, specifically in a Scottish context. And then I'll talk you through the structure of the course and the type of content that you'll have exposure to and how we deliver that. We'll have a brief look at entry requirements and funding, all of which is on the website, so you might be familiar with that already. And then we'll pause for some questions, as Leah said, at the end. So as the slide says, social work, it's very much more than a job. And what we find across the profession, but also in our student body, is that people often come to the program because of the professional experiences, but also because some of the personal experiences that they've had and the values they hold in terms of social justice and equity and upholding people's rights and challenging discrimination. And it's these values and principles which are very much at the heart of social work and very much at the heart of social work curriculum and the program that we offer. You may be familiar with the international definition of social work, which I've put on the slides here, and that is it is a practice-based profession. It's also an academic discipline. And there you'll see in that discipline in that definition there that social change, social cohesion, empowerment, liberation, social justice, collective responsibility. These are some of the words I've already mentioned and are very much at the heart of what we do and what we try to do as a profession to address structures that promote people to live well. What you'll see on the slide there is a mural from the Glasgow Art Exhibition, Art Trail, and that's St Mungo, who is the patron saint of Glasgow, and who is said to have founded this city. And this is the image there of the bird that never flew. And although I don't know all the details about St Mungo, what I do know is that he had a tricky start to his life, and that tricky start led him to different paths, and you can read all about those. But certainly, why I've put that picture there is because we all grow up with the hand we're dealt, and that can shape our future in many different ways, living in many different communities, which all influence that. And social work works alongside with people where they're at in the communities that they're at, and thinking about some of those principles that are highlighted on that slide. So, what do social workers do when we build on that definition? Well, they're there to help, support, and protect people who experience difficulties in the daily living. So, it is about care, it is about help, it is about support, but it's also about protecting people from harm, using legal frameworks and policies to do that, and using our professional knowledge and training to really advocate for people. And at the heart of that is about the relationships we have with people and their families and their communities. Social work does look different internationally. In Scotland, we find that social workers work across a range of different settings, working in casework, so working with individuals and families, working in groups, and also working more broadly with communities, or predominantly in the Scottish context, that is mainly casework that social workers do. And they work with people across the lifespan, so in pre-birth, early years, right up to aging and to dying across a range of different services. And you'll see there the type of settings that social workers work in Scotland, and that our social work students go on to seek employment with. And what makes a good social worker? Well, these are some of the key questions that you might want to think about. Are you someone who can make good relationships with people that are based on trust, integrity, and openness? Can you make difficult decisions? Because some of the decisions, in terms of perhaps upholding the rights of others, children, for example, um, might be difficult decisions to make for the family. Can you make those difficult decisions? Are you able to use knowledge and apply that in practice situations? And that's obviously at the heart of the program and what the course is set up to do. Are you able to accept people for who they are when that might be quite different than who you are? Are you able to walk alongside people in those situations? Can you recognize prejudice and discrimination? Are you able to challenge that where you see those things occurring in our society? And are you passionate about human rights and social justice? And does that passion translate to action? Because these are things what good social work is about. It's about sticking up for what you believe in to promote that social justice. And why would you want to study at Strathclyde then? Well, as I said before, Strathclyde is very much based in the heart of Glasgow, and that really is a positive element to the program because it allows our students to engage with the community, to have on offer to them the range of practice settings, the placement opportunities that we can provide. Strathclyde also really works hard to support students from all different backgrounds and experiences. So once you come onto the Masters in Social Work programme, you will be allocated with a personal tutor, and that tutor is there to support you throughout your journey. But we also have more some wider university initiatives and wider departmental initiatives that have been set up to support people throughout their education with us. So, for example, we have Strathclyde Cares programme, which is for anyone who comes to the university with a care experience that provides unique and tailored support. Um, if that is you. We also have the BME Mentor Scheme, again, to provide support where it might be needed. And again, that's individualized and tailored to personal need. We also have a very strong reputation in the social work field. We recently had a program review, and that was some of the strong feedback that we got is that the employers like working with Strathclyde students. They like to see a Strathclyde student apply for a job with them because of the opportunities that they have access to on the program and the standard of students that we both attract and graduate. And when students leave the program, they talk about feeling confident that gives them the skill base to be a critically reflexive practitioner. And we show the majority of our students then do go on to find employment. And for those of you who are familiar with the Scottish context, there is a recruitment deficit in social work. So, social work advertisements, social work posts are continually being advertised, which our students then go on to uptake and to find employment. So, in terms of the program structure, as I'm sure you're aware, if you have read the webpage already, the program is structured over 2 years predominantly. And we'll talk about the optional third year in a while. So the 2 years are for full-time study, and the 2 years are split into 2 semesters, with semester one starting at the beginning of September and finishing in December, and September two starting in the January and finishing in June. The first semesters of each year are campus-based, so you would be attending campus usually around 3 or 4 days per week to engage in the modules that you see here. And in the semester two, both of those modules are placements where you're based with a placement agency. And I'll talk a little bit more about those placements in a little while. As you'll see from this slide, in year one, semester one, you do 4 10-credit modules. That's Law for Social Work in Scotland, which is a module that introduces students to the legislative and policy field in Scotland and internationally, but it specifically looks at the Scottish context so that you're then able to apply that in your placement in semester two. That is one module that is delivered as a blended approach. So the lectures are pre-recorded lectures, and then you come onto campus to do seminar activities with your class. Individuals, families, and structures in society is another module that you would do at that time, and that really introduces you to the underpinning psychological and sociological theories that you will use throughout your program, but also within practice. Then we have Theory and Practice 1, which is a module that predominantly focuses on social work assessment. Again, thinking about the theory that informs assessment, but also the different tools that you would use in practice. Again, all of these modules are preparing you for when you go into placement in semester two. And then the last module that you'll do right at the end of semester one is a module called Methods of Professional Inquiry. And that module is an introduction to research design and research methods. So, really starting to get you to think about preparing for your dissertation in the next year and thinking about the areas of social work that you might be curious about, that you might want to take further as you move into year two and do your master's dissertation. And then in semester two, you have a 90-day placement. As I said, that involves being placed in a social work agency. Um, and if you think about the previous slides about where social workers work, that really mirrors where the types of placements that we offer. Our students are really placed in a broad range of social work settings, working with a wide populations of people, a range of individuals, all experiencing different things. So some of that will be perhaps with a local authority, justice, children and families, community care, or it might be with a third sector, a voluntary organisation. That could be, for example, a foster and adoption agency. It could be a hospice. It could be a drug and alcohol service. So a real wide range of placements. And in semester one, what you would do is you would meet with your tutor to discuss the experience you bring, but also the experience you would like to build. And we would think about the ideal placement for you. And I say ideal in inverted commas because we have the placements that we offer change all the time depending on what agencies can provide. So we try to match you up with a placement that best meets your needs at that time in your program of study. It's a full-time placement. Both placements are full-time, so it's 90 days, usually 9 to 5, although depending on the placement agency, there might be some variety around that. So, for example, it might involve some shift work if you're working in residential settings. And students have a half-day study kind of for every 5 days on placement. So the demands at that time really are full on, and it's something that we really ask that students prepare for when they are thinking about coming to study social work. In year two, you do three modules in semester one, the first being risk and protection in organisational context, so looking at risk and protection across the variety of social work settings. Theory and practice too, that moves on from assessment to look at social work intervention. What is social work intervention? How do you do it? So again, what are the theories that underpin that intervention and how do you apply that with people? And then the final module is the beginnings of your master's dissertation. So here you would be assigned with your dissertation supervisor and start the and start your dissertation. And this is really um, an aspect of the study that some students enter into with trepidation. Perhaps you've been out of study for a while and it feels like a big piece of work, but also that allows students to really focus in on something that is of interest to them. And that can be a really exciting opportunity to really drill down on something perhaps you're passionate about or you want to know more about, and to develop that into a research proposal, a research design, and do that for your master's dissertation. And then in semester two, you would have your second placement. Again, that's 90 days full time. Um, and the rules around social work education in Scotland are that it has to be a contrast in the placement. So working with a different service user group or in a different setting so that you're really starting to expand your experience in social work so that when you move into employment, you have a broad and in-depth experience to take with you into your first kind of qualifying position as a social worker. And then after placement is finished, you have some time after that to kind of finish off your dissertation. For those students who require a bit of extra time, there is the option to go part-time in year three and to finish your dissertation alongside working. We find that students are kind of 50-50 there. Some students really want to to get their dissertation done and go into employment without carrying the two. And some students also have to do that because of visa requirements, whereas others, as soon as they've finished the second placement and have got um, enough credits to do their postgraduate diploma in social work, decide to take their dissertation with them into their first employment. And that's something that we talk with you as the program goes along. What's important to state is that our programme is accredited by the Scottish Social Services Council, and that means every 5 years we have a review with the Scottish Social Services Council, the SSSC, and also employers to ensure that our programme meets the standards that they set across all social work programmes in Scotland. And that means ensuring that our programme is mapped against the standards in social work education. And this is just a screenshot of the web page. And if you're interested in learning a bit more about what those standards are, please do go to the SSSC website. You can see the web page there at the top of my slides, and have a look at that, because that gives you a really kind of in-depth look at the type of knowledge, skills and values you're required to demonstrate across all social work programs in Scotland. I guess key things to take away in thinking about applying for the Masters in Social Work with us is that it is a full-time program, and so to come on to that, you need to be resilient, realistic, and ready to get started in your studies, um, because it is a master's that is academically demanding, um, because it's full time, but also because of the placement element. And it's also emotionally demanding because of some of the issues you'll encounter in your reading, your academic reading, um, and kind of your practice as you go into placement and through the case studies that we use throughout that academic learning to support your learning. So that's something to really think about and be prepared for. The 90-day placement is something that students talk really highly about. On that placement, you're matched with a practice educator, and you also have your university tutor who support you through that process. And that makes up 50% of both years of your study. And it's a real opportunity to learn all that academic learning that you've done in placement one to working with real life people in real life settings in real communities. But the demands of that, as I've already said, are high because of the full-time nature of that. And so again, that's something to think about and plan for financially as you enter the program. It's very much focused around small group work. So we have 20 places on the social work program. And so all the learning that we spoke about in those 2 academic years is quite immersive. We encourage and we require that people on the program engage with each other and feed back and ask questions. And that is how the seminars, for example, are really set up. So again, that might not mirror your prior education. So it's something to think about and also something to be prepared for as you study social work. And critical reflection is absolutely core to all learning across the social work programs. So critically reflecting on your own skills and values and knowledge, and thinking about what you need to develop to become the best social worker that you can be. And that is at the heart of social work practice, and continued professional learning is something that would carry with you um, both during your time as a student, but also as a professional social worker. And we've included a quotation there from one of our graduates about the ways in which they felt the course prepared them for their career. I'll not read that out because I'm sure you can do that. So in terms of entry requirements, these are all on the web page, and you may or may not be familiar with them. But in terms of, there are kind of three key elements to applying that relates to the academic requirements, to your work experience, and also your professional capability. So in terms of academic requirements, that would be an upper second class honours degree, being able to have maths or English at National 5 or the equivalent, And if English is a second language, you're required an overall score of 7 in your IELTS score. In terms of relevant experience, we require that all applicants to the master's program have at least 6 months full-time or the equivalent part-time experience. And that experience should be related to a career in social work. So will involve some direct contact with people, whether that's individuals, families, or groups, where the focus is on supporting people to live well and to manage difficulties, or about seeking social change and challenging discrimination. And again, there's lots of information about that on the web page in terms of what type of experience we're looking for. And it's really important that you're able to reflect on that in your application and show us the type of experience that that gives you, the skills that that gives you, and also where you're looking to expand that. In terms of professional suitability, we're looking for people that can show critical reflection, as I've already spoke about, on themselves, but also has good communication skills, is able to show and demonstrate warmth and empathy, is able to see potential in some of the most challenging circumstances, who is interested in difference and diversity and challenging discrimination, racism, exclusion, oppression, that they have capacity to help people to live with difficult situations and sometimes worsening situations. And as I'm saying that sentence there, that capacity sometimes, well, not sometimes, always involves thinking about self-care and how you look after yourself in the midst of that. That you're also able to engage with a wide range of people, and that you're also able to understand and present information accurately. Within the course, but also within the profession, you're often required to write reports, assessments. So being able to understand, interpret, and to present that information in a clear and accurate manner is really important. Also, in terms of professional suitability, once people are accepted onto the programme, it's a requirement that you register with the Scottish Services Council, and anyone who doesn't do that is unable to remain on the programme. And as part of that, that requires having a PVG, which is a criminal background check. And if you are someone who has some criminal convictions, it's really important to recognise that that isn't a barrier to applying to the programme, but it's really important that it's is declared. I mean, you don't have to do that in the initial application stage, but we do encourage people to be as open and transparent as they can. And if you've got any questions about that, to reach out and chat with us about that. In terms of funding for home students, there there is a potential bursary from the Scottish Social Services Council. So if you're normally resident in Scotland, you may be eligible for a bursary. Those are nominated on a first come, first served basis once you've been accepted, once you accept onto the programme. So if you have an offer and you accept that offer, that's when we would nominate home students for the SSSC bursary. The funding for that is reviewed annually and does see some change. So it's really important that you go onto the website and familiarise yourself as to what that entitles you to. At the moment, it pays roughly for half your fees, although it is, as I say, it's constantly being reviewed, and students, profession are really advocating that that's increased. So, as I said, do look onto the website to see what's available and planning for that. And for those in England and Wales, you might be eligible for funding from the Department of Health. Again, you need to be offered a place first. We don't nominate you for that, but once you have an offer that you've accepted, you can contact them to see what funding is available. Other things to think about as well, and this applies to all social work programs in Scotland, is about placements and travel costs to and from the placement. And that will vary depending on where your placement might be. We don't we aim not to place students more than an hour from their home, and that depends on how you're traveling. Again, if you're a home student, you do receive a bursary to support with that travel costs, but that's only available for home students. So if you're coming from overseas, again, that's something to think about and to budget for. Then there is also some costs associated with registering with the SSSC, and that includes your PVG scheme, which is your criminal background check that I mentioned earlier. Again, all this information is on the website, so do have a look at that. And in terms of the application process, again, that's on the website, but just to kind of go over that. So the initial assessment is via your application, which includes you providing us with an academic reference. And then the next stage would be to invite it for a group interview, an online group interview. And after that process, we would make formal offers. Once an offer has been made and accepted, then that's when the SSSC registration and the declaration of offences happens. So as that is a requirement, continuation on the programme depends on the outcome of that. But usually our students do not have a problem with that, just to make that really clear, but it is a requirement that you go through that process and you are registered with the SSSC. So last two slides here, and then we'll open it up for questions. But how do you decide if this program is for you? Do your research, and you're clearly doing that coming today. But get in touch with us if we don't answer any questions today. You know, we're really happy to help. We're a small team, we're a friendly team, we're a relatively small masters cohort, and our students are really happy to talk to prospective students if they've got any questions. So do contact us about that. But also do your research about what it's like to study social work in Glasgow, in Scotland. So think ahead and plan for that. Have you got your finances in place? What where are you going to live? What's the price of accommodation? What does that look like? How are you going to get to uni? What types of support will you have? I mentioned that social work is demanding academically, demanding personally. So do you have a support network? If not, how might you engage um, with the local community, with the student community, to start developing that 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 support network? And Strathclyde University have a really active student union, and a lot of our students report getting really good support through that, whether it's support through joining some of the sports group. We had a student who was really into a netball and made loads of friends through that. Maybe it's through the international students group, but that the union is there, and it's there for all our students to access and to build friends and support through that. Obviously, talk with your family and friends about this decision and what they think about it, if it's the right career for you, if it's the right choice for you. And also think about your strengths and the qualities you have. And that really goes back to that critical reflection. You know, is social work for you? Are you able to do some of the things we spoke about? Speak to social workers, find out about the job. Could you see yourself in that profession? And ask yourself, can I make a difference by being a social worker? Do I want to make a difference? And if you want to make a difference, then I think social work is absolutely a really good career choice to do that. And that is it from me. So I'm going to open it up to